The Doctor. In the TARDIS. Next stop, everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm with your co-host, Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS, once again, ready to talk more classic Doctor Who with my wonderful partner in time, wonderful friend, and man who wants to turn Texas blue, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
I am. Boy, as we're recording this, we are less than a week away.
Jesse's rubbing his hands.
Yes, I am going. We got a new Springsteen album in October. If we get a new president in November and a new Doctor Who episode, Who episode. Yeah, a new Doctor Who episode in December. We will have the final quarter would have salvaged the worst year ever.
Yeah. Maybe we can stick the landing on 2020. We'll see what happens.
Yes.
Here in America, we've got 7 days until the U.S. presidential election. God only knows what's going to happen.
God only knows. Yeah.
So, yeah, Dakota Beach Boy song, right?
Yes, and you're in Ohio, I'm in Texas, and they are both states that it is going to be tough for Texas to be blue, but the hope is Ohio, maybe.
Well, we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think we're pretty much on the same boat as you guys, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But fingers crossed. Like we can always, as a certain Jesse Jackson likes to tell me, keep hope alive.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
So, once upon a time, I used to remember hearing that back in the day. All right. But in the meantime, as we wait to find out the future of humanity as we know it, we're going to talk here at episode 206. We're going to talk Timelash. Timelash. Yeah, one of the most notorious episodes from the classic era. Written by Glenn McCoy, who never wrote ever again for Doctor Who. Directed by Pennant Roberts, who directed previous episodes The Face of Evil, The Sunmakers, The Pirate Planet, which is one of my particular favorites because, hey, it's from a Douglas Adams script, and Warriors of the Deep, which was another really bad episode from the classic era. So this was the fifth serial from season 22, the infamous season 22 in 1985, starring, of course, Colin Baker as the Sixth Doctor and Nicola Bryant as Perpigillium Peri Brown. So I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts on this one. Obviously, I know you haven't seen this one before, but this is something that generally I tend to go out of my way to avoid, although I've seen it a few times over the decades. So it's not like I haven't watched this before and watched it again, but it's certainly not one of my favorites. So I'm looking forward, before we get into the cast and the trivia, I want to get your general reaction on this one.
So I think you did me a great service, Charles, by setting expectations. Jesse, this is not a good episode. So
really lowered the bar on this one.
So when you lower the bar, you kind of go, oh, that's not that bad. Like I used the example on Farscape, Jeremiah Crichton.
Yeah.
A lot of people will say is one of the worst Farscape episodes. And I'm like, it wasn't that bad. I've seen worse episodes. So this one was, I'm like, oh, okay. I certainly see the cheesiness on some of it. And when we get to some specific topics, I'll bring up things. But, I certainly have seen episodes I've enjoyed. I've had episodes I've enjoyed worse. So this ended up being a nice little two-parter for me. Not a great two-parter,
right, but
not a bad way to spend Sunday afternoon. But also maybe I watched this after having the Cowboys just poo-poo all over the floor. It's like, compared to the Cowboys, anything looks good.
This is true. The 2-5 Cowboys.
Yes, when they scored a field goal against a team that has no name.
As opposed to the 5-2 Browns.
Absolutely.
Hands
yes.
up if you saw that coming in 2020.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see. But we won't get into football because, hey, that's another podcast. We're the Doctor Who podcast.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk some Doctor Who. All right. So guest cast this time, we had Robert Ashby as the Borad, a.k.a. Megalyn. And we had Paul Darrow as Tekker. And he previously played Captain Hawkins in the John Pertwee era serial, The Silurians. And he also played a character named Guidance in a Big Finish audio for the 8th Doctor, Paul McGann, called The Next Life. And I know that a certain John Takis will be all over me like a cheap suit and give me all kinds of grief if I don't mention that he also played Kerr Avon on Blake 7, which I know Blake 7's a big particular favorite of John, so I want to give him some appreciation there. And interestingly enough, Paul Darrow was also in the movie Die Another Day, although his scenes were cut. So they show up on the deleted scenes, I guess. So I just thought I'd mention that. Dennis Carey played the, I guess you want to call him the fake Borad, the old man guise of the Borad. And we just recently saw him not too long ago as Professor Chronitis in Shada, if you recognize him from that serial. And he also played the Keeper in The Keeper of Traken, which I've mentioned on numerous occasions is the very first story that I've watched all the way through and got me hooked on Doctor Who. So I thought I'd give him a little special nod there. Eric Deacon plays Mikros, and Janine Crowley plays Vina, the actress who has considerable trouble finding her line of sight and seems to be looking at cue cards or something completely off stage while she's talking to characters right in front of her, if you notice in this episode. She turned up later on an episode of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. And we also had David Chandler playing Herbert George Wells, who gets revealed, of course, H.G. Wells at the very end of the episode. But unfortunately, throughout most of the story, he's very annoying as Herbert. And we'll talk about him, obviously. And lastly, we had Dean Hollingsworth as the android, who turns up later in a Sylvester McCoy-era episode, The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, as the bus conductor, if you remember that character. Just thought I'd mention those actors and as some of the more notable characters in this rather unnotable story, in my opinion. Trivia this time. In the 2010 Sarah Jane Adventure story, Death of the Doctor, Jo Jones, the former Jo Grant, recounted her visit to the planet Carful, explaining, quote, "The doctor took me to this planet once called Carful, and they had a leisure garden, and the plants could sing." Although, interestingly enough, and I'm sure this is probably one of Jesse's questions, that the reference in the story in Timelash, a previous adventure that the third Doctor and Jo had on Carful, but we never got to see that adventure. It never happened as far as the TV viewers were concerned. It happened completely off camera, and so they're referencing something that, as far as we know, we knew nothing about.
And yeah, I did a little research to know that. I know one of the trivia is that IMDb, and you may be going to mention this, that originally they were going to try to talk that it was the first Doctor had visited, and that's why there were so many. They mentioned only one. It actually worked for me because we watched things in out of order. It felt normal to me, like, oh, they're talking about an episode we just haven't watched yet, so it didn't bother me.
Right.
And I even know that I know now they never showed it. That's actually a selling point for me, that we know there are adventures that we don't see between episodes. So I kind of thought that was kind of nice to kind of make a reference to something that had not happened, just because it seems very Doctor Who-ish.
Yeah. You would think that maybe Big Finish would do that episode or that story someday. I don't know if they have or not already, but as far as I know, they haven't. So if they did, please write in and correct me on this one. But I just think it's something that, well, if you're going to reference a previous adventure, at least let's get to see it. And it might be a good idea for a Big Finish story. I don't know.
I agree.
So Jesse mentioned, talking about that this was originally written for the first Doctor, and of course along with Ian and Barbara and Susan, who visited Carful in the original script. But you also mentioned that a small part of this remains when Tekker was talking about that one companion. So he's like, you know what, there's only one of them, which makes no sense, because if the third Doctor was there with Joe, that was the only companion he had at that time, so he shouldn't make that comment whatsoever. So it's just another error in the final version of the script that they never bothered to take out or caught.
Yeah.
And then they filmed it, so go figure. You think they would have noticed it when they filmed it, but I guess not. The story was also originally submitted as a Dalek adventure, but was rejected by script editor Eric Saward, who asked Glenn McCoy to resubmit it without them. So they originally going to have the Daleks, they took the Daleks out. And the script also gave the explanation for the destruction of the Bandrel, and apparently they were originally called the Girdles, Gurdel, which is at least a better name than Girdle. Their missile, you know, that they at the end, when the Doctor kind of takes the TARDIS and puts it in front of the missile and then comes back, and Peri's kind of surprised. He's like, well, hey, you know, you survived. How did you do that? And the Doctor's like, well, I'll explain someday. Originally, though, they were going to actually do an explanation, was that the warhead was neutralized when the missile contacted the TARDIS's time field. So I don't know why you wouldn't just say that and then, you know, move on, instead of just going, well, I'll explain someday, and then just kind of leave it hanging that, oh, hey, the Doctor just showed up. We don't know how he survived that thing he thought he was going to die in.
You know, and this is a good place to bring this. I was going to bring this up when we go to our topic of the Doctor, but
yeah.
Colin Baker is not served well by many things, which I think shows how well he's done in Big Finish, and even how well he is in the Peter Davison story of them, you know, to celebrate the 50th anniversary, where, you know, he plays himself.
Yeah.
And for as enjoyable he is as conventions, he could have done in a different era. I think he could have done really well as the Doctor.
I mean, I personally, I chalk all the blame, or at least most of the blame, up to Eric Saward and John Nathan Turner, the script editor and the executive producer. Because one of the little trivia bits I wasn't going to mention, but I might as well now, since you brought it up. Apparently, director Pennant Roberts was very concerned that the Doctor and Peri were arguing so much. It's like they didn't even want to be near each other. And so he was just so turned off by the unpleasantness. He asked Saward to kind of try to tone down their arguments so that make the Doctor more likable. Yeah. And so Saward tried to do some of that, I guess, but apparently it wasn't enough. And so, you know, I just find it odd that, you know, Saward had to be told that. Like, hey, you know, you're really making the Doctor unlikable here, so I can't deal with that. You know, that's not the Doctor Who story I want to direct.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know what director would want to direct a story where the Doctor is just so unlikable, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. It just...
Although, you know, they did a lot, I guess, during the Capaldi era, so go figure.
Yeah, but Capaldi had a certain gruffness to him, but there were signs of him being caring. You know, they have the music, you know, he was a more full character, and I just don't think Colin got the chance to do that. Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think he was served well by his era. And thankfully, Big Finish went a long way to redeeming his Doctor, as we've talked about several times.
Yeah, and I do think, you know, I've joked about us talking about this, but it would be a very quick discussion. You know, by far, Turner is the worst showrunner. I mean, there is hardly in fact, I would expect you, like, I would almost do the challenge, like, okay, can you come up with 5 good things he did as showrunner? Because it seems like the more we talk about shows during his era, they are things that we don't like about. And not just you and I
That's a really good question. I can come up with at least one right off my top of my head.
Okay.
He replaced Tom Baker with Peter Davison when Tom Baker left.
Okay, so yes, that is an excellent cast. It's an excellent choice.
Yes. So that's at least one good thing that he did, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
And I'm sure I could come up with another list, but not while we're talking about it right now. So
Sure. Yeah, I understand.
it's like a pop quiz. What can you do? So
Yes.
yeah. Well, okay. Here's my top 5 list of why J&T doesn't suck. But okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. One last little bit of trivia here. Actually, no, I got 2 more. So this serial makes several references to H.G. Wells' novels, including, of course, The Time Machine, The War of the Worlds, The Invisible Man, and The Island of Dr. Moreau.
So they were too subtle for me to get.
Yes.
I got a little bit of The Time Machine, but I was like, I knew you had told me in advance, like, we meet H.G. Wells. So,
yes.
And I don't know if that was supposed to be a surprise or not, but because I knew
it's
I
kind
knew
of a surprise,
was.
but it's not that great of a surprise. So I didn't mind spoiling it.
No. But I did not see a lot of, and so I guess I didn't take time to try to Google, H.G. Well references an episode.
Well, you had the kind of War of the Worlds between Carful and the Bandrels and, the island of Dr. Moreau, where a scientist experiments turning humans into animals. So
okay, yeah, I see the villain having the grotesque face. Okay, yeah, okay, I see that. Yeah, obviously the TARDIS and the Time Machine. Yeah,
right. The Doctor appearing invisible, like
yes.
when he uses that little time crystal.
Okay, yeah.
So kind of like that. And then also Vina essentially being the inspiration for Weena, who is the female character lead in The Time Machine when the time traveler goes into the future. And then, of course, you had the Morlocks, which, the creatures, the Morlox in this story. But in the future, the Morlocks, Morlocks, are the kind of cruel, disfigured mutants in the future.
Very nice, Charles. Now, see, I did put you on the spot, and
you
knew immediately. Good job, sir.
There you go. Okay, at least I got something right? So just, kind of a heads up there. But previously, H.G. Wells' presence in the Whoniverse was referenced when The War of the Worlds was seen being read by the Master in the John Pertwee era story Frontier in Space, and would later be acknowledged again when both the 7th Doctor and the 8th Doctor read The Time Machine in the 1996 TV movie, which was a great way to bookend the story, in my opinion, because at the beginning you had the 7th Doctor just kind of chilling in his TARDIS, controlling that gorgeous Gothic design control room where he's got kind of like a library nearby, and he's got a nice little sitting chair, and he's got a gramophone playing a singer that sounds a lot like Billie Holiday, although it wasn't Billie Holiday, and he's they're sitting there reading The Time Machine, and then of course he lands somewhere. And, he goes out, gets shot, gets killed, regenerates, goes through his whole entire adventure. And at the end of the story, he goes back into his TARDIS, takes off, dematerializes, and then goes back and picks up his book right where he left off and keeps reading in his new incarnation.
Which is nice.
Yeah, it was great.
It's very nice.
So, and of course, it's a little on the nose to have the Doctor reading The Time Machine, but, you were trying to do, I guess, to sell that to American audiences. So
absolutely.
All right. 3 topics today, because I want to talk about this as less as possible, I guess. Topic number 1, as Jesse said, let's talk about the 6th Doctor. But let's also, in this segment, talk about Herbert, H.G. Wells, and we could throw in Vina as well, because the 6th Doctor has a part where he has to go back to Scotland in the 19th century, in the year 1885, and that's where he encounters H.G. Wells, who kind of stows away in his TARDIS as the Doctor is trying to bring Vina back with that medallion or whatever that she's got.
The MacGuffin. Yes,
the
that we
MacGuffin,
need, yes.
the amulet. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But yes, definitely a MacGuffin in this story. So,
Yeah.
so what did you make of the Sixth Doctor? Obviously, we talked about how he's not very likable in this story at all. He's arguing with everybody. He's arguing with Peri. He's arguing with Herbert. And obviously he's got to argue with the bad guys, but we normally don't have a problem with that.
Right.
And of course Herbert and Vina. So what did you make of these characters?
So to bring us back to football for a few minutes.
Okay.
There used to be fans that when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers first started, they said, I can't watch them because their uniforms are so ugly. That bright orange,
yes.
That was just an unlikable uniform. There are...
Not like the orange, brown, and white of the certain Cleveland Browns.
Exactly. There are, the sports station I listen to they have a character called the Uniform Czar, and we'll talk about what a good look something is, or how this uniform is so unstable.
Yeah.
It is almost impossible to watch this team. There's no way this team can be good with that bad of a uniform.
Yeah.
And I think of that every time poor Colin. You're just like, this is by far the worst outfit that a doctor ever had to wear. I mean, why, and I know that Turner loved Hawaiian print shirts and he wanted this, but I during the summer wear Hawaiian print shirts because I'm a man of size and you're supposed to.
Right.
But even they can be, it doesn't look like a patchwork jacket or something. Like it looks horrible.
Well, it's supposed to, I guess, but
and I don't like. Let's ask.
It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be completely tasteless. That's what Nathan Turner wanted.
So why would you want your main character to wear tasteless clothes? Why would you want your main character to be unlikable, and not like in the Dabney Coleman character Buffalo Bill, which is an old sitcom where
or the William Hartnell.
Yeah.
First Doctor.
Yeah, but even then there is some it just isn't as bad as poor Colin.
Yeah.
Now there is some charm.
So even after all these stories that we've talked about Colin's era by now, you still fixate on Colin's costume.
I cannot get past that. I cannot get past that costume. And it is, how there's the technology that you can take smoking out of classic movies so it won't offend. They need to go back in and change his costume.
And CGI his costume.
CGI his costume, and then wow, this is a lot better episode.
That's an interesting idea. I'm surprised some fans haven't done that on YouTube by now. To just kind of replace his entire uniform with a solid black suit and see how he looks.
He's it's an interesting story. I do not hate it.
Yeah.
I thought it was. I think one of the other trivia I read is this was the last time the classic era referenced a actual historical figure.
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right.
So I do think that Herbert was played a little bit too much like a fool. I think you could have. Yeah. I think you could have. I think this is going to sound horrible, Charles.
Yeah.
So please forgive me.
Go ahead.
I don't want to be Captain Grant. This script needed someone to touch it up who loves Doctor Who, right? Like yours truly, you or someone else. Yes, someone who loves Doctor Who, and say, okay, I get the idea. You want to show that Herbert is kind of this clumsy young person, but I can make him a likable. Yeah. I can make him not totally. I understand the Doctor should be a little standoffish, but you've got to show a little bit of charm, a little bit of nice,
All they need to do is just make him a little bit socially awkward.
Yes.
but well-meaning, not just a complete oaf, not a buffoon.
Yeah, and show how smart he is, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm smart, but I'm socially, and there needs to be like they once they told the story of Modern Family that they had a joke that Ty Burnell, who played Phil Dunphy, the lead, one of the leads,
Okay.
and they had a joke for him, and they said, we absolutely know that the actor would kill it. It would be funny, but we have to understand that we have to show why Claire loves this guy. And if you make him totally a doofus, you lose him why Claire would like him if he's that. And I think the same thing, right? Like, you have to show why Peri wants to hang with the doctor.
Yeah.
There has to be something in there.
It's kind of like with The Simpsons, where
Yeah.
every so often they have to remind the audience why Marge is still married to Homer.
Absolutely. Perfect. Yes. And they don't in this episode.
Yeah.
I did, though it is always fun to see the doctor being smart, coming up with an idea.
Yeah. He does kind of show that. Because he gets to build that little time device with the crystal and use his intellect in that way to outwit the Borad.
Yeah, and immediately he understood.
He's heroic. He takes the TARDIS in front of the missile.
Heroic, yes.
Yeah.
And going into the very cheesy time lash,
yes.
You
mean the device that everybody seems to hate to go into, but somehow ends up right in front of, and then just happens to accidentally fall into at some point or another through the story.
And it makes it look like a cave, right?
Yeah.
It's like, the special effects are so bad. It's like he's just fell into a cave.
Well, most of the time it kind of looks like, when you're just seeing that little triangle entryway,
right.
The gateway,
yeah.
It just looks like somebody put up some tinfoil behind it.
Yes.
And then threw in some lights to flicker on and off so that it looks like something high tech.
But then when the doctor goes with a rope, it does look like he's spunkling or something, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, he is spelunking. That
yes.
he's spelunking down into the time lash. Which, remember, when they enter the time lash, they kind of shimmer and disappear.
Yeah.
But that's not what happens when he goes spelunking. He's just like, okay, just lower me down, and and then he's surrounded by all these kind of styrofoam, sort of things that are supposed to look like crystals poking out. But then there's Christmas tinsel and just whatever glistening thing was lying around at a novelty shop. To try to make this look high tech. It's pretty bad.
If they had said that, the time lash will conform to something in your mind, so therefore this looks like the caves of Anna Donnelly or something, or
Androzani.
That's why, or something, or it just looked pretty silly. Like I said, because you told me this is a bad episode, I was able to go, that's one of the reasons why Charles is saying it was bad. Okay,
So you understand why I said that then?
Yeah, but I do think that, as you said, the doctor's very heroic. He seems to have, he has a purpose. He knows what he's trying to do. He has some charming moments.
He cares about Peri. He doesn't want her falling victim, although he kind of forgets about her for a good portion of the story.
Well, of course, that's, the companions. Well, we'll think about them in a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
whenever they get in danger, then I'll start thinking about them. But
yeah, and the female kind of lead, I'm drawing Vera, right?
Vina. Yeah.
Vina.
So like I talked about, this actress who is just horribly wooden in her delivery and just like, say if like I'm looking straight ahead and I'm trying to talk to you, she's looking like off to the side, or like up or down, and it's so bad. It's like
Yeah.
are you even an actor at this point? It's like, how did they just pull you off the street or what?
Yeah. So listeners, as long as bandwidth is good, Charles and I look at each other through
Yes.
Skype.
Yes.
So yes, he is deliberately looking
I'm
off
I'm
camera
gesturing,
as he's telling this story
Yeah.
to yes, Jesse,
Yes.
I think this is, and it's just
turning my head. Yeah.
She was I actually thought the character was pretty strong. I mean, she had to, they're forcing her to marry someone she didn't care about. She was concerned about her father. She goes back she goes to Earth. She gets rescued. They seem to be, her and Herbert kind of have a little bit of connection. If she was a better actress, you could have seen that. So the potential was that would have been really interesting. And I go back to,
but it's the execution, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. The idea, you like the idea, but it's just the way it was carried off.
Yes, I agree.
That didn't live up to that potential.
I totally agree. Now, what's your thoughts? Now, seeing this multiple times.
Yeah, it's been
It's
been at least a decade since I've watched this, so I'm kind of watching it.
Were there things you saw about the Doctor that you went, okay, yes, this, finding some good points?
Well, again, I don't really have. I mean, I like Colin Baker. I really, and I agree. He was a doctor, at least on TV, with potential, and thankfully, Big Finish helped him realize that potential, like we've talked about. But here, he's so let down by the script, which has him arguing, just telling everybody to shut up. He's just like one wrong statement away from just like completely trying to choke somebody, like he did Peri in the Twin Dilemma. He's about to just completely blow his top when, at the end of the story, when he's in the TARDIS with Herbert, and Herbert is just prattling on and on and on about ridiculous things, while the Doctor's trying to concentrate on trying to stop the missile and doing something, I don't know, important to kind of save the planet, whatever, and it seems so unnecessary, or it just seems so unpleasant to watch. And I felt bad for Colin Baker watching this, just knowing how good he could have been after listening to all the Big Finish audios, and I feel myself just kind of depressed at the way his Doctor was treated by Saward and John Nathan Turner. It kind of just makes me grit my teeth a little bit, thinking about just how much better his Doctor could have been, and how much the show could have been, and probably maybe been saved for a few more seasons had they handled his Doctor better.
Yeah, and I know you could talk all you want about reduction in budgets, and therefore special effects, and
those are valid concerns.
Yeah, but good writing can do things. For example, I was listening to a podcast with talking to Aaron Sorkin. Mm-hmm. He was talking about his new film, The Trial of Chicago 7.
And all that,
Yeah. So his new film, The Trial of Chicago 7, he said because he couldn't afford the budget, he showed very little of the riots in the 1968 convention. He said, and similar to Spielberg doing Jaws, that they didn't show Bruce, the fake shark, because it wouldn't work. That ended up making it a better film because you used your imagination. You had to do that. So you can get past the bad special effects and a bad budget partly if you have smarter writing, if you have better stories.
And you have an innovative director
Yes.
that can use things like, oh, I don't know, shadows to conceal less than impressive monsters or less than
Yes.
impressive aliens,
Right.
and make them look better as a result because hey, they're kind of hidden in shadow and therefore more mysterious
Absolutely.
to the
Well said,
viewer.
Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else about the Sixth Doctor, Herbert, or Vina?
Nope.
Won't address. All right. Topic number 2. Let's move on. Let's talk about Peri this time. We talked about the Sixth Doctor. Let's talk about Peri. Poor Peri in this episode. We also can throw in the rebels. All of 2 apparently named Katz and Cezanne, and a
Yes.
bunch of expendables that we don't get to know. And we
Right.
might as well throw in the Morlocks because Peri spends a good chunk of the story tied up on a post, waiting to be transformed into kind of like a half woman, half Morlock's creature, like the Borad, I guess. Because
So,
because the Borad needs a woman and
yes.
needs a little sweet loving down by the fire, apparently.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. So I'm watching this episode on Sunday,
Yeah.
and she's running away.
Peri.
She figures out how to unlock the door,
Yeah.
and she goes from this brand new, sparkling, modern-looking corridor
Yes.
to, oh, I'm in an ancient cave.
Yes.
You're like, wait, what is the transition here? So I'm like, okay, go with it, Jesse.
Well, just
right?
it was kind of like, okay, yeah, this door leads to the the area we don't go into. Like this is
Yeah, yeah, like not a fire escape that leads to somewhere. I mean, just over there.
yeah. It's just kind of like
And then
the junkie room in your house where you have all your stuff piled up, like you're a hoarder
I guess so.
on on a TV show that that you don't want anybody to see if they come over to visit.
Now, I don't remember the name of the monster that she runs into.
The Morlocks, yeah.
Okay, is that the Triumph the Insult Dog?
No. Those were the Bandrels, the aliens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the
Yeah,
the ones that were the Bandrel puppets were the things that Karfel was going to go to war with, that fire the missile. So the Morlocks are the kind of like dinosaur looking monsters that Borad is half Morlocks.
So she's in this cave,
Yeah.
right? And she's in there. I swear, it looks like Triumph the Insult Dog.
Yeah.
That puppet, that bad. And it's moving back and forth, we're getting close to her, and she's like, And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
they're not even close to you, Peri.
Yeah.
Step back. Really, really horrible. So bad, it was funny. And then
For me to poop on.
Yes, exactly. I mean, right? Does it not look like the Triumph?
What it kind of looked was more to me was like, okay, they built like the head, and it didn't really move apart from just kind of his mouth kind of opening a little bit. And this big long tube, and all they were kind of doing was kind of like steering the tube around, trying to poke it at Peri. And Peri's supposed to, Nicola Bryant's supposed to be reacting to this, looking terrified, when it just looks like something that's out of a grade school play.
Yes, it does. Yes, absolutely. And Peri is a good companion. When
written well, yes.
Yes. I got to see her. And it was a very small convention in Dallas, both with Colin Baker and her, and they did a panel together. There was a lot of banter back and forth, a lot of very fun discussion. She, and it's one of the issues of a classic Who, right, is they sometimes don't know what to do with a companion.
Yeah.
Like, okay, do we need to put her in danger or him in danger? Do we need to, they have to do this. So, she got a little bit of screen time, so that's good.
Yeah.
But I did think it was just very odd, the transition from the corridor to that, and her chasing away, like they choked her with that. That was a weird looking.
It's like an S&M collar on it,
Yes.
that they were using to drag her around by the guard. And
not a good image in 2020.
No, it's not a good look, and it had to be, I'm sure, pretty unpleasant for Nicola Bryant having to be dragged along by that thing. But it was not a good look for the show or for Peri at that point.
Absolutely.
I did like, the writer, Glenn McCoy finally remembered that, oh, hey, Peri has a botany background. So let's make use of that a little bit, because Peri's, interested in the plants, that, when Tekker takes them in and greets them, and they go to the kind of like this like waiting room or whatever, and they're kind of hanging out, and there are these plants. And Peri's just kind of like naturally very interested in them because she's a botanist. So she goes over to the plants, and the first thing you know, somebody says, well, don't get too close to those because, hey, those plants spit acid. And that was pretty much it. So it's just mostly, as Jesse's kind of like trying to get some dinner down, that
she did throw that plant that had the acid layer.
Yeah.
So they did have the Chekhov plant. If you're going to show it in the first act, show it.
Yeah.
So I did get that, but I did
attack a guard with it. But yeah.
I think. See that later if we're rewriting this, and heaven knows I don't know why they haven't called us, Charles, to rewrite some of these. Right, we could have used some kind of we could have used some subplot about some of the plants and what to do, and we could have had that to use her expertise. I agree with you. Yeah,
there's just part of the thing is that they made kind of a big mistake, I think, when they created Peri, that they made her a botanist, that was her background, because it's not overly helpful while you're time traveling. I mean, sure, you can identify some plants here and there, or like, hey, this is great. I get to go out and go to alien worlds and see alien plants. Okay, great. But it doesn't really add that much to the story. There's not enough story potential than, say, by making the character a doctor like Martha Jones, a police officer, or like a tribal person like Leela,
mathematician, architect,
a reporter, like Sarah Jane,
archaeologist like River Song, where they did this. Yes, absolutely.
It's not the most helpful skill set. I'm just saying.
Right.
So consequently, Peri doesn't really have that much to do apart from, well, hey, okay, I guess I could try to meet some locals, but apparently all the locals are being jerks. So
yes,
that kind of like puts that to an end. They kind of essentially write themselves into a corner with her. And
absolutely.
So all they can do to think of what do we do with Peri? Well, we'll just have her chained up, and then we'll kind of drag her around every so often and threaten her, and she'll have to scream a lot. Great.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it had to be very disappointing. Although she does hook up with some rebels, and they, I guess, help to kind of like stir up a little bit of a mini revolt. But apart from that, poor Peri doesn't get to do much apart from be a victim in the story, and it's another reason why I just don't like this story, because of the way Peri is served in it. Because I am a Nicola Bryant fan. So.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that.
Okay. Anything else about Peri, the Rebels, or the Morlocks? That kind of look like a bad grade school, elementary school play puppet.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of puppets, let's move on. Topic number 3. So let's talk about Malin Tekker and the Borad, our big bads of the story. And let's also talk about the Bandrolls, who essentially are kind of like the Triumph, the insult comic dog, with like
The orange,
the orange, like ribbed lips, and going,
yes. We
hello,
are now at
we
war.
are talking with the doctor, and we
Yeah.
we would like to reestablish our peace treaty but because of how Malin Tekker treated us, we are now going to attack and kill all of you. Yeah.
Yes, you've cut away our food lines now that we need to attack you. Oh, we will have to tell Gallifrey the death of the doctor. Yeah, they were so just bad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but immediately when I saw the android, I went, "Hey."
Yeah, we can talk about the android too. Let's talk about the android too.
Yeah. That's Brainiac 5 colors.
Yeah.
Green skin and yellow hair.
Well, reverse it. It's not. I don't know. Maybe it's me. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm colorblind, but I think it was more like kind of a purple, dark purple.
So in my
blonde
TV,
hair.
it looked more greenish.
Okay, maybe it's the tint. Maybe it depends on your tint.
Yeah, maybe it's the tint.
Yeah.
Yes, but it looked almost green and yellow to me.
Yeah.
So, and I could have the TV done wrong, but it looked Brainiac 5 for me at the Android, and that made me smile.
Speaking of which, they only had one guy playing the android to save money.
Yes.
So they just put him in different scenes, and you're supposed to go like, oh, I guess that's a different android.
Yeah, like, oh,
and
there's
that's not at all
Android.
confusing. It's not at all confusing.
No. I did find and I'm going to have the names wrong, right?
Yeah.
The scheming bad guy.
Tekker.
Right?
Tekker.
The one, I'm sorry.
Tekker.
Maester Tekker.
Malin Tekker.
Right? Malin Tekker. That's right. Damn
Yeah.
it, I meant to do that joke.
Yeah.
Right? When you called him like Malin. Like, he sits there and goes, yeah, come to this chamber with me. I think I'm going to recommend you. And then when he gets there, it's all his fault. Throw you under the bus, right?
Wah, wah. He's that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And,
he's that guy at the office that tries to be your friend or acts like he's your friend, but then will throw you under the bus at the very first opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tekker was a pretty decent villain. I mean, he was cheesy, but it was fun, and you really liked. I mean, I was glad. I liked hating him. I like, okay, this guy.
He was a scenery chewing villain, yes.
Yes, and those are always fun.
Yeah, and essentially, Tekker is this guy who obviously is very ambitious. He helps to kill the previous Malin, who just happens to be Vina's dad, and takes over as Malin because that's what he's got sights on. But he's totally Team Borad until at the very end of the story where the Borad reveals, well, hey, I just want to get rid of everybody, including you, Tekker, and that way I can repopulate the world in my own image. And so he starts to do oh crap, I've totally bet on the wrong horse, and he tries to resist a little bit at the very end, but of course he ends up getting aged to death by the Borad.
Now, because we aren't watching this in order, when they don't show the leader's face, I'm like, oh, is it the Master again?
Yeah.
Or is this, is it somebody we're supposed to know?
So you thought it might be a previous villain.
Yeah, I did. I thought a little bit of that. I suspected it wouldn't be because
well, then did you see the flipper and you go oh, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I was like, it's probably not someone that we're supposed to know. But, when they also throw in that the doctor had been here before, I thought, oh, maybe it's supposed to be someone we know. So,
So when they did the actual reveal, and the villain turns around in his chair, and he's all dun dun dun, and he's got half of a Morlock's face.
Yes.
What did you make of that?
I went, okay, cheesy special effects. What I thought was the worst, Charles,
Yeah.
is um, the idea that you couldn't have mirrors
Yeah.
and the shallowness of, that's right, if Peri saw you and you're hideous, there's no way she'd ever be with you. So, like this all about this outer appearance is
Yeah.
the reason why he's a bad person, not because he's trying to destroy the world.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, because you're ugly. Heaven forbid that anything good happens to you.
Well, what I think was the doctor realized that the Borad was probably vain about his
Yes,
appearance
absolutely.
about his hideous appearance because of getting those mirrors revoked. So he just decided to prey on that and use that as a way to kind of, get to, needle the Borad and aggravate him and,
Yeah.
and just kind of wind him up a little bit that, like, oh, even if you turn her into, a half Morlocks like you, she's still going to think you're ugly, dude. She's not going to want to be with
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
And
Like, no. So, yeah.
it's like, and if you do this, you treat her like this, there's no way she's going to hook up with you, man. So it's not happening. And so he's using that to just aggravate and just frustrate the Borad. I don't know what he intended to do with that. Maybe you hope the Borad would get so upset he would make a mistake. I don't know. But
And I know I'm kind of going back to ground.
Or
we've
maybe
already
just the doctor is
discussed.
a jerk.
Yeah, it could be.
This doctor anyway.
When one of the things that I'm learning, not that I want to be, but because of some podcasts I'm listening to, as that when you're doing a magic trick, the reason why they say, okay, now, and they repeat what happened. Okay, Charles, I gave you a free choice on the card. They repeat everything that happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are they doing that? And they say that's to button the effect. That is, you need that to get the audience. So rewriting this, right? You get Herbert back in the TARDIS. You take him back. You have him leaving.
Yes.
And he goes, gosh, so much to think about. And the doctor could have said, well, be something interesting to write about, wouldn't it? And, and then you're like, oh, yeah, I guess that would be interesting to write about. And then he goes, and Peri's like, what was that about? And he says, she dropped this. Then you got to reveal it's H.G. Wells.
Yes.
Then you have a little bit, you've buttoned the idea that all the adventures have influenced him to write that story. They don't do that. They don't even show, they just show, they show the card, and then it's kind of, end of episode, cue credits.
Well, it was kind of like left to I guess they wanted to leave it up to the viewer, like, oh, it's H.G. Wells. He must have been inspired by his adventures.
Right.
Without actually stating that.
But I think it would have been better served if you button it. You close the loop. And like I said, because you set the expectation, it was a perfectly fine 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I've certainly spent less. I've watched things that I disliked a lot more. But you're right. This is not one that I'm going to say, like if someone says, "Oh, I've never watched Doctor Who before," and I love modern Who. What's a good classic Who episode to watch? I would certainly not lead with this one.
I would hope not.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want people to watch classic Who, I would definitely we'll save that one for down the road after you've watched this or watched this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious before we wrap this up our discussion.
Sure.
What did you make of the aging effect? I thought for obviously keep in mind these are 1985 special effects. So the way they kind of did it was almost like a stop motion type effect where they put a little bit of aging makeup on somebody, then put a little bit more and a little bit more, and then they replace him with like a skeleton, and then then that's it. Then he dies. But then that part I liked. But then when but it all falls apart for me as being impressed when they cut back. Like they get out of the stop motion animation part, and you see the skeleton there, and then it just kind of drops to the floor, like somebody just cut a puppet string, and it just went down to the floor. Was that your reaction, or am I the only one who saw it?
No, I think that's a fair reaction. I was like, oh, okay. That was kind of sudden.
Yeah.
It seems like you would have continued being subtle on the change. It wasn't bad for the era.
I would have just had somebody go falling down to their knees and then shrinking or just collapsing to the floor on their own, and then they turn into a skeleton.
Well, right. Like you could have kept the aging, and like you said,
it's less comical.
Yes, it would have been much less comical. But you got to remember, we have Triumph the Insel dog. Yeah. Trying to attack Peri.
Now, I'm gathering you were okay with this format because one of the things about season 22, we've talked about this previous stories from that season, that these were 45-minute episodes. So instead of getting 4 22, 23-minute episodes, we get 2 45-minute episodes, totaling an hour and a half. So essentially it's something in a format much like the modern era.
That was exactly what I was going to say. It felt like a modern era. Yeah. And so I'm used to watching that kind. So in a lot of ways, I'm more comfortable with that. And I don't think...
Because I will give you points that you haven't brought up pacing. So,
exactly.
For the first time in months.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now that you bring it up, I thought the story was paced well. It was. I thought I didn't.
You didn't have a problem with it.
It felt like it felt like a modern era story. I didn't feel like there was too much of, padding in there. It was for what it was. I think it was good.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
Good.
All right. Anything else about the story?
I can't think of anything right now.
Okay. All right. So, any favorite quotes from the story?
I do have a couple of favorite quotes.
All right. Why don't you share those?
So this may be one you don't like because you mentioned how the Doctor was in the TARDIS with Herbert, and there were two, and I only wrote down one.
Is this where he goes, "Shut up"? That one?
No, but. The one where quit saying – I didn't write down the one where he says quit saying that. And Herbert's like, when I'm nervous, I says this.
Oh,
all right.
Or when he goes, oh, I see. Yeah, that.
Yeah, that's it. Quit saying that. But I did love the fact that the Doctor says, look, Herbert, if you want to do something useful waiting to enter Valhalla, could you, please read off the numbers of the screen you see immediately in front of you. And Herbert – and I feel like this is not fair to Herbert. Herbert goes, of course, this one?
Oh, it's totally fair to Herbert.
And then the Doctor, how many screens do you see immediately in front of you? Just the one? And the Doctor kind of rose like, then that's the one.
Yes.
I just thought that was hilarious because I would probably be Herbert. I would okay, to make sure you're talking this screen, and yes, how many screens are in front of you? One? Okay, that's the screen. Yeah. I like that.
And I have to confess that I would probably be the Doctor in this scene because I'm one of those people that don't suffer fools gladly. So when someone's being a complete idiot and look, I told you to look at the screen. Well, okay, which one? This one? And there's only one screen there. I would be over there going, you moron! There's only one freaking screen!
Which is amazing that we have done this 6 years together because I would be the type okay, I want to confirm there's not, when you literally are saying. Yeah. I did love the Doctor saying, does nothing please you? And Peri, yes, purposeful travel, not aimless wandering was nice. And once again, anytime they make a comment about the Doctor not being able to control the TARDIS makes me smile.
Yeah. So as
Go
someone,
ahead.
so you bring up an interesting point here. So as someone who doesn't appreciate bickering in the TARDIS,
Yeah.
what did you make of the Doctor and Peri bickering in this story? I mean, there's a one, he's
Yeah.
he's arguing with her. He's she snapping at her for getting in his way, and he has to at one point scoop her up and pick her up, throw her off the TARDIS because he's got to go off and supposedly sacrifice himself.
I think it goes into the reason I don't bring it up separately is it kind of all rolls into my overall unhappiness with Colin Baker's the way he was written. I think that Colin Robson versus having Daverson's three companions bicker back and forth. I'm like, I just don't like these people. This is just not who the Doctor needs to be. And so I lump that in with the same thing of I hate the costume. I don't like his manner. I don't get what they were trying to do. Why do you make the Doctor unlikable? And so yes, but I don't bring it up separately because I just include that all in my checklist of what I don't like about the way he was written. And I want to stress, and we may be overly Colin Baker apologists, but I just know this is not his choice as an actor. I truly do not think, or he was trying to do something long-term that he never got a chance to do, right? Like he had planned, if he had gotten another season or two, to show that the Doctor had gone on a journey to become less cold.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I like about the following season, season 23, the Trial of the Time Lord season. And that's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to talking about that in early 2021 when we finally get around to it. That by that point, by season 23, and that 18-month hiatus between season 22 and 23, the relationship with Seward leaving the show, the relationship between the Doctor and Peri, the Sixth Doctor and Peri, is much better, much improved. They figured it out and how they can be likable toward one another. You can understand why these two are actually traveling together at long last. And Peri unfortunately only has the Mysterious Planet and Mind Warp, the first half of the Trial of the Time Lord season, and then she's written out of the show. So it's kind of disappointing. But
and so I want to ask you,
it's like they finally figure it out, and then they write her out.
Yeah, I also think that the way we worked this out, we saw Colin Baker playing the Gallifreyan Guard the week before we watch him. Yeah, and there, you can see that line, all the characters he had as that guard, he's showing a lot as the Doctor, and I don't think it serves him well. Right, especially seeing it right after each other, you go, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, it gets a little hard to take watching.
Absolutely,
unfortunately.
How about you? You got some quotes?
Yeah, for the sake of time, I'll just do a few short ones here.
Okay.
One of them is Tekker. Tekker has some pretty good lines in this one. He goes, "The stories I've heard about you, the great Doctor, all-knowing and all-powerful. You're about as powerful as a burned-out android."
Yes, a good one.
Burn. Then we got, let's see, the Doctor kind of firing, shooting back at Tekker later, going, "You gave me your word, you microcephalic apostate." And a microcephalic apostate is, for those who don't want to bother doing the thesaurus on the interwebs, it's a small-headed person who abandons their principle.
Ah, okay. Very nice.
So that's what he's referring to when he calls him a microcephalic apostate. And lastly, the Doctor and Herbert, where the Doctor says, Should there be another day, I'll explain to you in great detail which of the many time laws I am not allowed to transgress. And Herbert kind of says, well, who would know? And the Doctor replies, I would. So would every other Time Lord from here to Gallifrey. And I can assure you they're not all as pleasant and agreeable as I am.
Yes, that was nice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
So, all right. What's your rating?
So, you want me to go first?
Go first.
All right. So, in the spirit of Christine, I'm going to give this a 6.5.
Ooh.
Acid throwing plants. It barely passes, but it does pass.
Okay. Well, that's kind of like a solid D, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a solid D. I'm giving this one my episode rating for this one, 4 out of 10 aged skeletons dropping to the floor.
Nice. Very nice.
Where they just go thunk. It was either that
Yes.
or my backup for this one was going to be Bandrel puppets.
Ah, very good. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I think because you got me to think beforehand, and also it was a fun afternoon, after the horrible Cowboy game.
To kind of forget about the Cowboy game and lose yourself in some Doctor Who.
Yeah, palate cleanser, so to speak. It was very good. So very nice.
Doctor Who is the healing salve that heals all wounds.
Absolutely,
all right.
It was.
So reverse the polarity. This was a tough one, trying to come up with a modern era story comparable to this one, but I went a certain route, and I think you probably understand why. So we're going to go to 2007 for the Lazarus Experiment.
Okay, yeah.
This was the 6th episode from Series 3 in 2007, written by Stephen Greenhorn. And in this one, in 2007, London, an elderly man named Professor Richard Lazarus announces on TV that he will demonstrate a device that will change what it means to be human. Intrigued by this statement, the 10th Doctor joins Martha Jones at the launch party for Lazarus Laboratories, where they meet up with Martha's sister Tish, who works there. And Lazarus steps inside a capsule and emerges as a much younger man. Gasp. Using a sample of Lazarus's DNA, the Doctor and Martha find that Lazarus successfully managed to cause his genes to rejuvenate with sound waves, but also activated something in his DNA which is trying to change him into something else. Meanwhile, Lazarus returns to his office with his partner, the elderly Lady Thaw, who wants to be the next to use the machine so that they can be young together, but Lazarus refuses. Wah, wah. Lady Thaw threatens to have Mr. Saxon, that guy, pull their funding, but Lazarus transforms into a monster and kills her. So that's essentially my connection here. Scientist who turns himself into a monster.
There you go. Good job.
The Doctor and Martha discover Lady Thaw's body, find out that Lazarus must drain life energy to keep his DNA stable. Lazarus attacks the Doctor and Martha, and the Doctor sets the capsule to reflect energy rather than receive it, kind of like what the 6th Doctor does with the crystal, right? Remember when he reflected that back with the Borad? And Lazarus is blasted away. But then as he's taken away in an ambulance, the ambulance crashes and then finds that the drivers have been drained of life by Lazarus, so they have to go chase him all the way to Suffolk Cathedral, where Lazarus sought sanctuary during the Blitz. And Martha and Tish lure Lazarus to the top of the bell tower as the Doctor manipulates the church's pipe organ to produce maximum volume, turn it all the way to 11. And the vibrations caused by the organ interfere with Lazarus's manipulated DNA, and he falls to his death. And afterward, the Doctor finally invites Martha to come along for one more trip, but she refuses because she doesn't want to be just a passenger anymore. And the Doctor finally agrees and says she's more than that to him, and they leave together in the TARDIS. The end.
Nice.
So that's that. So I recommend the Lazarus Experiment. Like I said, this one was a tough one, but I think I found at least a little bit of a connection there.
Absolutely. Good job.
All right. So listener feedback. Well, hey, it's not listener feedback if we don't have feedback from two of our favorite people, right?
Absolutely.
So do you want to read Dave's or do you want to read Holly's?
I've got David's up.
Okay, go for it.
All right. Since you announced this as a bad story, I thought I'd point out some highlights and lowlights that entertained me.
Talking about Timelash, yes.
Yes, Timelash, yes. Lowlights. 1, the time corridor effect on the TARDIS scanner was terrible.
Commodore 64 graphics. Woo!
Yeah. 2, the bowl helmets with the veil looks like something picked up in a thrift store. Yes, they almost look like beekeepers. That was
They're
not
beekeeper
very
helmets.
good looking.
Yeah.
3, blonde androids in blackface. Awesome.
Like I said, I think it's a dark purple, but
Yeah. And I think, more you think about it, I think you are right. 4, when the man is executed by the ray, turning him old, the android bends over to pick up his device. You can see the hook and fish line used to suspend the skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
Good point, Charles.
Thank you.
5, standing safety belts. These work like a noose protects you from a fall.
Right.
Number 6, the orange puppet Bandro ambassador.
Bandro
7,
puppets.
yes. Plastic dinosaur, giant toothy worm, Morlock. 8, slowest missile ever. And then Dave goes on to say, these are some good points. There are only 2 episodes.
But they're double length.
Yeah. 2, it's better than Twin Dilemma.
Yeah, that's not hard.
3, Joe Grant.
Yay.
4, I enjoyed the idea of warding off the doctor with a crucifix. Why wasn't he seen as an Old Testament prophet? He was wearing the coat of many colors. Mm-hmm. Very nice, sir. 5, this is a rare example of precision TARDIS operation in the classic times.
Mm-hmm.
6, climbing into the Timelash reminded me of Poltergeist when they climbed into the place the little girl was taken.
Come, children, all are welcome, all are welcome.
7, John Pertwee. Yeah, because they did show that they had a mural. That was cool.
What did you make of John Pertwee kind of sort of make an appearance in the story when they knocked out the section of the wall and just happens to have this third Doctor portrait?
Yeah, I thought that was really slick. Yeah, 8, Herbert, the one-time companion who had uncontrollable curiosity and endless questions. He reminds me of what I'd be like as a companion. Very nice, Dave. Yep. And 9, peace wins out. Thanks, David K. Proctor. So thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. Those are all excellent good points and poor points.
You did a great job, Dave, running those down. I like that. I like the fact that he did a listicle this time. I thought that was pretty good.
I did too.
So points to Dave on that one. And of course, least but not least, Holly Mack writing in about Timelash as well. We always love hearing from Holly, and we're going to hear more about her soon. I'll mention that in a minute. Hey all, I have to say this was the first time I've ever seen this story. Oh, interesting. She says, it was interesting to say the least. Poor Peri in the last half of the story, right? Nice nod to the third Doctor. I do have to say the design of the monster with Peri was decent. Oh, so she kind of liked the Morlocks in the...
Oh, okay. Nice.
She liked that. In this case, the Doctor didn't lie to the Borad about the crystal. Nope. He was straight up. Said, look, don't fire this thing at me. I'm going to bounce it right back at you. And what does the Borad do? Fires it right at him.
Yes.
Brilliant. The reveal at the end that Herbert will go on to be H.G. Wells was a bit of a surprise. So she didn't see that coming. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. Always love to hear from you, Holly.
You. Always love hearing from you, Holly. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's been great that we've had Holly and Dave as regular listeners writing in.
They are both fighting a pretty long streak.
That's great.
I'm thinking I'm trying to think back when is the last time we did not have feedback from them. It would have to go way back.
It's been a while, so I want to
that's nice.
I want to give them some special appreciation for that because they've been really good about that lately. So cheers to both of you. We'd love to hear from other people too. So we'd love hearing from Holly and Dave. Don't get me wrong. But we would also like to hear from some of you out there as well. So if you want to be like Holly and Dave, and hey, who doesn't? Write to us, nextstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com. That's nextstopeverywheresmg for Southgate Media Group @gmail.com. Or you can reach us on Twitter at nextstopsmg on Twitter, Facebook, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who Podcast, or Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere Podcast. Jesse, how about you? Where can they reach you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram under Jesse Jackson. You can hear me every week talk to fans of Bruce Springsteen and his music from around the world. Friday, we got new Bruce Springsteen music, and the new album is amazing. And we also got an Apple TV documentary about making of the album. So you'll be seeing a lot of discussions about that. So please check on that. And Charles, how about you? Where can we hear you from?
Well, do I want to ask how many times you've listened to the new album?
It's been a few. It's been a few.
Go on, admit it. How many? How many?
Oh, at least a half dozen, and I've watched the documentary twice.
Well, that's good.
I've watched the documentary twice,
That's
yes.
fun. How long is the documentary?
90 minutes.
Okay.
And he does...
so the length of a classic Doctor Who story.
Yes, they play they play all but 2 songs off the new album, and they do so it's really a lot of fun, and there's a couple of really nice scenes with Bruce, and like there's a lot of discussion back and forth, and Bruce is like, okay, if anyone has any doubts about when to do the break, look at me. Yeah. When I make the break, that's when you'll do it. So you can tell he's leading the E Street Band.
That's funny. All right.
Yes.
Okay, as for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Next Stop Everywhere, including Doctor Who, Torchwood, the Sarah Jane Adventures, and more. And, of course, all kinds of comic book sci-fi news in my podcast that I do for Southgate Media, and also including Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, which is kind of on hiatus right now, but Jesse and DJ Nick have been kind enough, to talk Titans and Doom Patrol with me, and we're both waiting for right now for season 3 of both shows. So we've been getting some little tidbits here about Titans. We got the reveal of Red Hood recently, which I posted on our Titan Talk page. So hopefully we get a little bit more, and maybe we can discuss some Titans Season 3 news in a special episode, maybe down the line. Fingers crossed. The Phantom Zone podcast, where DJ Nick and I right now are talking The Boys Season 2. We just recorded our second episode, which I just got uploaded, and that's been a lot of fun. Nick is really enjoying it. I know I'm enjoying it, and hopefully listeners are enjoying it. So if you enjoy Nick on this podcast, definitely recommend checking out the Phantom Zone podcast. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And, of course, Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast they do with Jan Sprouse, whom you've heard here on Next Stop Everywhere, where we talk all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch, et cetera, et cetera. We just recently wrapped up our Twin Peaks actors who appeared on the X-Files retrospective. And next week, we're going to be recording our discussion of David Lynch's The Elephant Man, the 1980 film starring a certain war doctor, Sir John Hurt, as John Merrick. And also it stars Sir Anthony Hopkins, Sir John Gielgud, so a lot of sirs in this one, Anne Bancroft, the wife of Mel Brooks. And just all around a fascinating movie, if you've ever seen this movie. And they just came out with a Criterion Collection release. So next week we're going to discuss the movie itself. And then in 2 weeks we're going to do a follow-up episode where we run through all the special features on the Criterion Collection. And I hope everybody checks that out.
That'll be nice. That's really good. Yeah, I've really, as I've told you, I've enjoyed the X-Files kind of sample platter you guys gave. They gave me I've really enjoyed that. So that's a lot of fun. And I love the movie, so I'm looking forward to hearing you guys discuss it.
Yeah, I hope you check it out. Like I said, it just came out on Criterion if you want to pick it up. Nice new remastered copy. And should be great to discuss. So, a lot of fun. Good. And it's only David Lynch's second film, but one that catapulted him into kind of mainstream Hollywood awareness.
Ah, very nice.
From being the surreal experimental director in Eraserhead. So, next time on Next Stop Everywhere, episode 207, we move to the Sylvester McCoy era and discuss Dragonfire, the very first story with Sophie Aldred making her debut as Dorothy Ace McShane.
Nice.
And it's a very special episode because not just Jesse and I talking this one, not just one special guest companion, I've got 2 special guest companions lined up for this one. So we're going to have a foursome as Jesse and I are joined by none other than Holly Mack, kind of stepping out from behind the email curtain to return to Next Stop Everywhere. And hey, because it's Ace's first story, I've also conned Zan Sprouse,
Oh, nice.
one of Ace's biggest fans, to joining us for the podcast as well because, hey, it wouldn't be a great discussion of Ace's first story without Zan. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And if you've heard Zan and I on Ghostwood, you know that we should have a very interesting discussion.
This should be a lot of fun. I did want to stop and say to the audience,
Yes.
okay, Holly will be on the show, so we will be 1 email less. So we need a listener to step up. You
That's
need
a good
to send
point.
us an email because that way we want to keep the streak going.
Yep.
So we need someone else. Like we know David's going to do it.
Yep.
So someone step up. Let's go.
We don't want to take David for granted, but
No. I don't at all.
But we hope David writes in, of course.
Yes, he should.
You know, like, hey, DJ Nick or Christine, we know you're out there, or
Right.
John Takis, or any of other previous special guest companions, Lee Leonard. You know, we'd love to hear from you. Have you write in about Dragonfire next time.
Yes.
Drop us a
indeed.
line, guys. We'd love to hear from you. Or if you're not even a special guest companion, just drop us a line because we want to hear from you guys too.
Absolutely.
And this is a fun one to talk about. Kind of a cheesy monster in this one, but a pretty good big bad.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes. And like I said, it's Ace's first story. And we also see the departure of Bonnie Langford as Melanie Bush in this one as well.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so it should be a very interesting transitional episode of Doctor Who and a great episode of Next Stop Everywhere. So everybody come on back. Episode 207, Dragonfire, with Jesse, yours truly, Holly Mack, and Zan Sprouse. It's going to be great. I don't think I have to sell it any more than that. And we'll see you next time right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.